Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour. I'm your host, Matthew Hawkins, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Ed Carbajal. Ed, busy last weekend, exciting weekend.
Interesting.
Yeah, let's get rolling here.
Interesting. A lot of fists flying all day. Saturday, especially, was a big fight day with the PFL thing in the morning. The main event actually delivered. No thanks to the folks running the promotion there. That's all due to the fighters. And then, but before that, we had the you and I were kind of chatting during the hours long. I guess that's the first ever MMA draft for the Global Fight League, the GFL. So that was interesting.
Yeah, I mean that was a spectacle in itself. I don't even know really how to absorb it all though, because I mean he got guys getting drafted who didn't even know they were in the draft.
Yeah, I actually. So I mean, I reached out to the GFL about that, and I think he kind of addressed it on the Helwani show too. But if you look at when I put my Twitter post up, what I was told was that it was I wrote it down here. So the draft doesn't mean that they had fighters had signed agreements in place, and the fighters that they posted about that were added to the draft, it was done at the request of those fighters' managers. And what the GFL told me when I reached out was that there seemed to have been a miscommunication, since the GFL didn't directly communicate with the fighters. It was the managers speaking for them, and they weren't sure if the managers made the fighters aware that their names were going to be included in the draft. Now, he compared it, and I think he said this on the Helwani show. He compared it to the way the draft happens in the NFL, where they're just in the draft. No, there's no signed agreements in place. So that's what he kind of compared it to. But I mean that kind of clears up some of it. But 117 of the 120 fighters that they mentioned are the ones that so out of 120, only 117 of them had signed agreements based on what the GFL told me when I reached out.
I mean, okay. So in the NFL for the draft, you have to declare for the draft. So the player would have to actually put his name in there. It's not like your name's just in the draft. You actually declare for it. At that point, you sign an agent. And I mean, in the past, I don't know how it all works now with the NIL money and stuff coming in. But yeah, okay. Well, but shouldn't he let the other coaches that are supposedly drafting these teams know that they're drafting a guy who has no intention of fighting with the third pick in the draft?
Yeah, no, that was, and that was kind of said when in the response I got. They were like, "There's obviously a miscommunication between GFL manager and fighter." I mean, I don't know where the communication lines broke, but yeah, you're right, man. I mean, this is one thing I'll say. And when he said that to me, my response to them was, because not for nothing, with the fighter, chasing fighters for interviews that I do for all the places that I write for. The hardest thing to do is to get in. You and I do, and you know this too from doing this podcast. When we want to get somebody on this podcast, unless you or I are directly communicating with the person we want on this podcast, that's a fucking pain in the ass to get a hold of somebody and schedule a time and everything. So my experience dealing with more times, I don't want to say like MMA managers or combat sports managers are all like nefarious or bad or anything like that. I mean, you can see, go on social media and judge for yourself. Most of the ones I've dealt with have been pretty good and all right. Most management companies. There are a few that I'm kind of like I got in touch with the fighter because I reached out to them on social media directly, and I've told them, hey, I've been trying to get in touch with your manager, and they're like, they haven't told me anything. So when I got that response, I was like, you know what? I get that. I could see that happening. If you ask like the counselor up north, Eric McGracken, I mean, he'll tell you flat out, there should be some sort of I don't know.
It just
like a test. If you want to be a manager, you should have some sort of expertise in something.
Yeah. No, my thing is if I'm launching a new MMA organization that's already been taking some heat for what I've done,
Mm-hmm.
the last thing I want to do is
Yeah.
have clown shoe stuff like this. And I don't, and that's what, so I don't even, I mean, I don't know. Listen,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of fighters I like are in this. Even though they're old, a lot of, there's a lot of guys that I
Yeah.
like. I'm going to watch the fights. I'm not going to pay a pay-per-view to watch these fights. If this
No.
dude thinks that they're going to carry a pay-per-view,
Well.
unless it's like a $3.99 pay-per-view on like YouTube,
Yeah.
I'm not real sure who the hell he thinks is going to pay for this.
Yeah. When I saw that, and I'm with Caposa on that one. Like, Caposa was the one that was like, if they're trying to sell pay-per-view for something no one's ever heard of, they're going to be dead in the water, and he's right about that. I mean, you got to be somewhere where folks can. I just shared something on social media. I don't know if Tubi wants to get into the combat sports. You know what I'm saying? Like they're streaming NBA live. They're doing the Super Bowl. Like, not for nothing. GFL and Tubi maybe do something. If you make it easily accessible. I mean, you and I have talked about this before. When I got into K1, back in the day, it was because they were on late at night on the MSG network out here in the Northeast, and that's how I found K1 and all those great strikers and kickboxers and stuff like that before they got into MMA. Because it was easily accessible and I could find it and watch it. Combate Global, they're not hard to find. You can watch them if you have. They're somewhere where they're not asking you for extra money. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta make it easy. If you're gonna come out the gate and I start trying to do it. I mean, the PFL has been around for a while and they're out trying to do pay-per-views and nobody's buying them.
No, but
You
at least
can't do it.
if the PFL wants to do a pay-per-view, at least they're throwing out arguably the number one heavyweight in the world headlining it.
Yeah.
Still, I can't think of a. I mean, what would be your headlining paper? Like, what would be your what would it be? You're gonna sell Ferguson versus or Weidman Uriah Hall 3? That's gonna be a pay-per-view headliner. Like, I'm trying to, the names they have, I mean, sure, you could do, well, Vanderlei's not fighting, thank God. The heavyweight division's scary. Yeah. I mean, even a fan of old heavyweights, this is wild that, the average age of the heavyweight division's got to be, 48? I mean, at least. I mean, only next to the young one, So I don't know. I think it's going to be hilarious. I think there's going to be some ups and downs. So I do like that they appear to be semi-transparent with this stuff, but you gotta tighten that stuff. Just not making sense to me how this is going to unfold. We don't have cities, we don't have venues, we don't have locations. When's the first event supposed to be?
In April. No specific date yet, but in April.
In April, so we're approaching February. So potentially 60 days away from it.
I got a guess about the venue because they didn't answer. Again, when I reached out about the discrepancies with the fighters saying I'm not signing and all that stuff, I had a couple of questions that asked. Some were answered. Some they said the announcements and those details will be coming soon, and that was one of them. But in my question, I asked, are you going to be holding it? Because, if you look at Karate Combat, again, Combate Global, the UFC has their Apex. It's becoming a thing where if you have one central location where you can hold events out of some warehouse or a studio or something and broadcast it, then that's the most economically viable way to kind of move forward with holding events. That draft was held in a place called Van Wagner Studios in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm not sure how big that studio space is. I did check out their website, but they're into broadcasting and stuff like that, and they do a lot of sports stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's what they do. Like, all these matchups happen in one central location. That would probably be the smartest thing for them to do, as far as if they're going to try to make everything off of again, like Karate Combat.
You're not really global, though. You're not really global if you're just doing it out of a studio in Phoenix. I mean, I don't call it what you want. I don't know how you. I don't know how you pay the bills without a gate.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know how you create the money for that. But
you need that. That's why they need a broadcast partner. I mean, if you look at everybody, including the UFC, and they have ESPN, they had Fox Sports in the past, and then Viacom before that, included Bellator again, Viacom. Like they had a broadcast partner. They need a broadcast partner, and I don't know who's got the bread or the money that they're looking for. The homie out in Italy, Aldolino said. I mean, he gets pretty good sources and pretty good scoop, and his understanding is that they have funding to make it through at least 1 year. Lord knows how many events that is. I mean, you could do 2 events in 1 year, and that's your year. You know what I mean? But if they get a broadcast partner that's willing to throw some money at them to kind of get them around, at least in the States, do events in freaking the Hard Rock in Florida, all of them. If it, like you said, do some kind of gate. Do it here in Carteret, New Jersey, the new venue that I keep talking about. Where they just had the Pro League event.
There's a million places that they could go and put 2,000 people.
But they need a broadcast partner to help them financially. That's what
I agree with you. But pretty much everybody you named, basically, his broadcast partner was them paying for paid advertisement time that led to them eventually getting a contract. I mean, even PFL paid ESPN to be on the air to start. So I don't know I don't know of any strong businessman in the world of MMA and like combat sports where we're in right now, with everything failing from Showtime to HBO to, I mean, it looks like Netflix is already out. The next is Jake Paul debacle, and now he's fighting his brother on another I forget what it was. Max.
PFL is.
So I mean, what investor is going to put money into that? You're gonna if you got, unless you're, I mean, okay, if you're, let's say, I mean, you mentioned Tubi or these things, like if you want to work a deal out with something that has got a company that really has nothing to lose, then it's one thing. But CBS Sports ain't gonna get behind this. NBC Sport, it's too, they don't know what they're getting into. At best, maybe they'll buy a spot on MTV2 or something again. I mean, that's like really what you're gonna have to do. I don't understand why the run from YouTube. YouTube's there and it's accessible and everybody watches YouTube. And nobody to this day has. I mean, I don't know why there's not a YouTube combat. I mean, it just seems like it's right there for to be taken with. I mean, you couldn't use the name, I imagine, but it seems like you could probably work out a deal with. Listen, I don't know. That's not my expertise, but it's right there. Everybody knows how to use it. They put their draft on it. They put all of their press conferences on it. They put everything on it. Why wouldn't you just put the fight on it and at least get an idea? Because if you put it on YouTube and you have concurring 37 views, you're probably not going to compete with the UFC.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you got all these names and, the managers and I get the communication. We're not advertising that Fedor's coming on this show, and then Friday rolls around and we're like, well, you know what? We talked to
Here's Fedor, the guy that works around the corner.
We talked to somebody in Russia, and they said to make sure we let everybody know he's going to be on the show. But then when Friday rolled around, nobody really told him he was supposed to be on it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a level of professionalism that's just not. It's not clicking yet, and it doesn't mean it can't click. But it's not a great start for me as somebody who's like, this has got to be flawless to work.
Listen, and we're not the only ones. I mean, it's been out there. I mean, one of the best takes I heard was on the Sirius show that Din Thomas hosts when he had King Mo Lawal on. And King Mo, he called him out on everything we're talking about now, a little bit more harsh than we are right now. But, I mean, when he closed his statement by saying, like, the same thing that I've been saying since we've been talking about the GFL. Like, I want them to succeed. I need them to succeed. Like, the sport needs something. We need something fresh and new because it's starting to get weird. That's why Jake Paul is getting his clicks today talking about MMA because, I mean, he's shitting on the UFC pretty much. But, like, we need something fresh. We need something new. And hopefully this is just the beginning of growing pains. Maybe, everybody has a rocky start. I hate to say it, though, but, like, I remember the WFA.
Oh yeah, I attended them. I went to World. I was at WFA 1 and 3. I saw Ice-T perform in the ring. Fight night meets the nightclub.
So it's the WFA event. I'm thinking it was the World Fighting Alliance, where the one that Boss Rutan's last fight.
Okay, so that was number 4. That was their 4th event. When Boss fought Warpath, Ruben.
Yeah. It was supposed to be the Hawaiian dude, and he wound up fighting Warpath.
It was supposed to be Chemo, and then Chemo tested positive for steroids. And,
and
Rampage and Lin were on that card.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like, it was all names on that card. Like, I'm getting WFA vibes off of these guys. And, for me, that, obviously after that event, that was it for them. It's like, I don't want that to happen, because I really liked that event. I thought that event was fun. But, when it was over, I was like, oh, this is the next, this is the number 2 to the UFC. And then they just went away. And this guy seems like he wants to be something. And in a world where there's so many, there's other regional promotions handling, like Cage Titans does a way better job with their stuff than they're doing right now, because the format is just too crazy. You can't, this league team thing. I mean, I don't know. I wrote about team sports and MMA. Maybe I mean, it's MMA. It's one-on-one, regardless of how you.
The only way the team thing could work. Now I'm just brainstorming ideas here with you talking about them having a studio. In theory, they could go like the TNA wrestling route, and they could film because they say, oh, certain guys aren't fighting, right? Well, but in theory, you could almost have everybody fight in one night, record it all, and then have 10 events. I mean, you could put 50 fights on in one day, and that's and then that's recorded, and then now I have these to distribute over the next 2 months. Whether I do it YouTube or I'm distributing it through a partner, but it seemed like that might be a way. Now you'd have to try to keep the results quiet, and there'd be, and you know what I mean? But it'd be kind of the Ultimate Fighter kind of thing, but you basically would, one night you would have a huge event. Nobody's there. It's just recorded. I think Combate kind of did this too. Weren't they doing some recorded stuff? If I recall, I think they kind of may have recorded a few events here and there and did that too. But
there was 1 or 2 pre-tape ones, and Karate Combat launched that way. Like, their Inception event was actually probably their best looking one. It was a cinematic. It looked like a fucking movie.
But that could work in theory, I would think, because then you're not having your cost is limited to the one night at their place. You're not paying for ushers and chairs to be set up. And you could do it, and maybe that would work. I don't know. I don't know what he's paying these guys until I see what they're paying these guys. And for guys like Anthony Pettis, guys you would think have some money, wouldn't be jumping in this for $10,000. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and that's the other thing too. They have that all these other things in place, the retirement plan, the 50% revenue share, and all that stuff. And it's like, okay, if you're doing that, I mean, that's great for fighters. God bless them. But how are you gonna keep going after that? Like, it's like a going out of business type of thing. I mean, I want, like King Mo said, I want them to do well, man, but it just seems like a very rough start.
Speaking of something that is doing really well, Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship. I feel like a proud papa a little bit, because I feel like I nailed this one, and now I see everybody kind of coming around. And I like it because it's different, it's fun, it's it's violent, and but I mean, I don't know. That event this past weekend in Philadelphia was electric.
That looked like fucking WrestleMania or some shit.
It made it feel like, I don't want to say it felt like Pride, but it felt like a BKFC version of Pride in a sense. With some of the camera views of the ring, and it was great, and they seem to be nailing it. Everybody's getting on board now, which is great, because all that's going to do is help build their brand. All the people involved there seem like good people, and I'm the most, I don't know, pessimistic's not the right word, but cynical, I guess, when these things pop up. I'm very cynical in looking at these people, because we've all seen hundreds of these companies come and go, steal from fighters, abuse fighters, and then disappear. And we were skeptical in the beginning. I loved it because I thought it was crazy and it reminded me of the old fight days. But we also sat here and was like, I don't know where the money's coming from. I don't know exactly who these guys are. We kind of went through our own little checks and balances, interviewed fighters, interviewed commentators. I've talked to some of the investors and stuff personally. Everybody seems like they're good people. They all seem like they know what they're doing. They bring a medical doctor, travels with them, who's one of the top in the country. I mean, they're everything they're doing. Some of the matchmaking has been some questionable. That's happened, but it happens everywhere. In every organization, we've seen beat downs for no reason.
And not for nothing, they're going again this weekend. They're at Mohegan Sun Saturday.
Correct.
Friday, Saturday, I forget what day, but they're like
Saturday, the first. They come back with another one. DAZN needs to get their head out of their ass, because I went on. I would have subscribed had they really advertised that there was another on DAZN.
Don't get me started on DAZN. Yeah,
because I went onto their website and I was like, okay, so if I subscribe right now, I'm gonna get another event next week, right? That's gonna stream flawlessly for me. That's gonna be clean, and I'm supporting a brand that I like, right?
Yeah.
No, I can't find that. I can find every talk show of every single person about boxing,
but I can't find,
couldn't find it clean. Decided, no, not gonna. It's a lot of money. They're not cheap, So everything needs to be. I don't know why they're not advertising it. I don't know. Again, they choose to do what they do, and it's why they're not able to keep any organization on their channel, because they run them into obscurity. But this one seems to be working, and I don't know if it's McGregor effect. I don't know if it is, because whatever you think of Conor McGregor, and listen, I am not a Conor McGregor fan. I've bashed it in for a long time. I like to watch him fight, but I'm not a fan of his. He brings excitement to this stuff in a level of, it's a little clowny, but this is bare knuckle fighting. We've always talked about not taking stuff too seriously. We got guys in underwear basically fighting in a ring. Now we're just stripping it down and punching each other with bare knuckles. Let's have fun. Let's get fired up. You know what I mean? Like, let's do
this
that.
weekend shouldn't be, because this one is going to be another Fubo. It's going to be on Fubo Sports, so that shouldn't be hard to watch at all.
Okay, so that's where the confusion lies, because when I click on Tapology, it's called BKFC on DAZN 4.
If you go on their website, they have it lists DAZN and Fubo Sports on the BKFC website.
So it's on both of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I don't know about you, man. It seems like David Phillips just doing whatever the fuck he wants.
I wasn't aware that they were simulcasting with DAZN. I thought DAZN had their own standalone shows, and then Fubo and the app had the other remaining shows. That's the way I understood it. So I misunderstood, because if that's the case,
if you go on their website, it shows and you click the event, more info. It tells you right on top. I have the UFC card up, because we're gonna talk about that next. But it tells you. Now it's gone now. When I looked at it earlier this week, it was Fubo Sports and DAZN. Now it just says DAZN.
Well, see, therein lies the confusion. It may not have been on the calendar when I was looking at it 7 days ago, or whatever. Well, not 7 days ago, 4 days ago now. Well, so I don't know, but
I do know that if you go on DAZN Sports YouTube channel, you can at least watch the prelims.
Yes.
Because, and again, that's not something I get. Like you said, they're not advertising shit. DAZN fucking sucks. Like I since the Bellator, the way they handle Bellator was an indicator of how they handle anything that's not boxing. If it's not Eddie Hearn and it's not boxing, then DAZN could give a fucking shit. I really hope that BKFC, with their Triller, all the stuff that they're doing. I like when they're on Fubo Sports. I watch when they're on Fubo Sports. I mean, their app. Their app is. I know you like watching stuff on their app. They definitely. I hope. I don't know. I don't see them lasting with DAZN. I know Triller, just their parent company or whatever you want to call it, Triller. They just got another $50 million of investment round. I got a news press release about that yesterday or today, and I hope they do something with that money to kind of like put BKFC make BKFC more of a priority, because shit, I'd rather watch it on Fight TV / Triller, than whatever the hell the Zone is doing.
It looks like they may have added more seats too. I'm looking at the Ticketmaster for Mohegan Sun right now. It looks like all the expensive seats are essentially bought. The whole lower bowl. I'm not sure. I say lower bowl. I'm assuming there is upper level by what I'm looking at here. Looks like they basically opened up the upper level. Looks like it was a lower bowl kind of thing, initial setup, and now there's a bunch of seats available in the upper level, which I'm sure are going for. Let's see what they're going for. What are they asking for upper level seat? I'll tell you right now, it'll sell out by $75. Yeah, so they're going to sell it. They'll end up selling that out by.
Especially there, Brendan Ward's on the card. He packs the house every time he fights there.
The walk up gate it'll sell out the casino for sure. So, but yeah, I mean, tremendous event. We talk about the success of it, but some of the results from the fight. Main event, talked about it. Jeremy Stephens just packs a punch. I mean, he broke his face. He broke his jaw. He did severe damage to Eddie Alvarez. Alvarez stood in there. They swung. It's what happens in this sport. And Jeremy Stephens has got hammers. He's like a Mike Perry light. So
they're talking about him and Mike Perry now.
Makes sense to me. I mean, I'd watch the camp. That fight.
That's a headliner for them. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I kind of felt bad about watching Alvarez take that loss. Like, that's just another testament of how combat sports eats these guys up. I was hoping, obviously, if last week I had him picked to win, but I mean, I didn't. I'll tell you what. One thing, Jeremy Stephens, like his post event press, like the interview he did, where he was just kind of like, nobody fucking called me, nobody gave a shit about me when I lost, and then the night belonged to him, and they were like, well, do you feel like? He's like, no, I don't fucking apologize for shit, like. And then he kept it real the whole time, and he's probably. It's funny because like Mike Perry, he gets to BKFC, gets to bare knuckle. Now he's, who the fuck is that guy? That guy is Jeremy Stephens, And then the other one that you called, the fucking like you called that like you scripted the fight yourself. Ben Rothwell with that knockout. That shit was. I texted you and I was like, "You called that shit, dude."
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Mick Terrell's good. He's a big heavyweight, had a great record, but he gets hit. And Rothwell, you don't get a second chance.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. That punch he hit him with was knocking out any human on this planet.
Yeah,
Ngannou goes down. Any human on this planet gets hit with that punch, they go stiff. So. He's a big dude. It was kind of odd to hear him and Stephens are both free agents. I think that they'll be back. I think this is where the place to be right now. I think running anywhere else, unless the UFC offers you a big contract to come back, I think anything else would be incredibly stupid. Now, if I'm Ben Rothwell, I might be looking at the heavyweight UFC division, though. And I might be going, I can't hit John Jones. I can't, you know what I mean? Like Rothwell, although older, I'm not saying he wants to get back into MMA, but the state of the heavyweight division, I mean, he packs the punch that, in this day and age could almost win you the title with who that division's got going. I don't think that's happening. I think he's here to stay. He said the excitement there was wild. But like you said, man, these guys land here and it rejuvenates them. And I don't know. And I don't know. I mean, obviously being successful is helpful, because Eddie Alvarez today is probably not like, oh man, this is great. He's under some pain, he's dealing with the repercussions of it not being a good night for you in this sport. But I mean, top to bottom, great card, unbelievable night of knockouts.
That's a good question from Joseph, Mr. Front Proof Media himself. But would he make more money in MMA over bare knuckle? I don't know. I feel like about the same right now, as far as what he was making in MMA compared to bare knuckle. I mean, Mike Perry seems to be a little different because he's obviously a big draw. That's a good question. I'd like to see the payouts. I don't know if Pennsylvania discloses the purses. MMA Junkie would have them if they did, but
I'm guessing he got a couple 100,000. I feel like that's kind of been the going rate. $250,000 has been what some of the big names have been getting. I feel like that's like Mendez and some of those guys somewhere in that neighborhood. He's not making more in any MMA other than perhaps the UFC if the UFC decided they wanted him back. But right now the value with him is in bare knuckle. If he wins a couple more fights, if he goes on a little run and the UFC heavyweight division is struggling, I forget how old exactly Rothwell is. He probably doesn't want to wrestle anymore either. But
even though he's got that nice choke that he does, but yeah,
I'm just saying that it's out there. If Jones retires, that heavyweight division is going to be a come and get it. I mean, it's going to be if you can beat Alexander Volkov.
Well, here's one thing though, like talking about heavyweights and re-signing Rothwell and all that. I spoke with Jorgen De Castro 2 months ago. He just won the Cage Titans heavyweight title in New England, and the combat sports scene in New England, like for MMA, boxing, anything, CES boxing, if you've ever watched it, and CES MMA, Cage Titans. Every time Bellator went to Mohegan Sun, they packed the house. They love fights out there. Jorgen De Castro's making his BKFC debut this Saturday. That if he wins, that's a fight to make right there. Rothwell and De Castro at heavyweight. I mean, that's something you could put on like one of these DAZN wannabe pay.
No, I mean it's a banger fight for sure. Yeah. I don't think it hurts to not jump to Ben Rothwell. Mm-hmm. I think that you can kind of feel your way around, figure out like where your niche. Like Rothwell's niche in this sport is having the biggest punch and just drop-in fools. I know Jorgen De Castro's a beast. He's a huge guy. He's got a win over. He has a win over Junior Dos Santos at the fairly recently, right? Last couple of years, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, at the Eagle FC, and then
there you go.
I mean, he just knocked out Joshua Marsh for the heavyweight title at Cage Titans. He's their champion, and he's got the I forget what the other title is. Like, if you watch my interview with him over at Expectation Sports, I mean, he's holding like 2 or 3 regional titles right now.
Yeah, so I mean, it's there. I'm just trying to go through my brain of the heavyweights and the really, you got Terrell, you had Hunt come up, so he wasn't a natural heavyweight. There's not a lot, and there's not a lot of guys that are big and kind of gutsy enough to stand with Rothwell, and De Castro probably is one of them. We'll see that he hasn't got his debut. You got to come out there. You got to do it. You got to get hit. You got to eat it. I mean, it's a quick learning curve in this sport. It seems like so.
I
mean, there's not a lot of you either go in there and know what you're doing, or it's ugly. So I don't know, but everything has been going great. I love the hype. I love that we have something else to talk about. That it's not just some niche that we're trying to bring up. We've got now the bigger wigs in the industry talking about it and really praising it. To me, it's number 2 behind the UFC. It's UFC and BKFC are the combat sports of this country. To me, it's only the shills that are getting flown out to Saudi that pension PFL is anything. I mean, it's great. That's BKFC. We just mentioned UFC. UFC comes back this weekend.
Well, before just one last thing about last weekend's BKFC card. Because I wrote an article on Beck Rawlings. She was there in the beginning. She fought last weekend, and she wanted her respect about being an OG, a chick like her to stomp her foot on the ground and say, "I'm an OG of BKFC," and ask for her damn respect. She damn well deserves it, especially when the chick that beat her twice is like, it was the one that told her to do that. It was like, I didn't know that Christine Ferreira was even like, I'm not going to do this. She didn't want to do BKFC. And then when she saw Beck Rawlings was doing it, that's what made her say, oh, if she's doing it, then I'll do it. I didn't know that until she told that story at the post-fight press conference. And she was there in attendance in Philly for that event to cheer her on, the woman that she beat. And it's just like, just that's again, like you were into it in the beginning. She was there in the beginning. I mean, she definitely deserves her respect. And I mean, not for nothing. If she fights, I hope she makes BKFC her thing because she doesn't want to go to the PFL. And if the UFC is not going to take her back, then I mean, if BKFC is where you shine, sweetheart, fucking shine on.
Somebody else who doesn't get the credit, and they didn't win when they fought, but they fought twice in BKFC. Early on was Paige Van Zandt. People forget she headlined Knucklemania 1.
Yeah.
So, her obviously she's changed over the years from what from when she debuted in the UFC. But if anybody deserves some respect,
yeah,
and I'm not into slap fighting shit, but if anybody deserves respect for what she's done in combat sports, I'm sorry. She's done it all, and she did it before it was popular to do, and she did it before everybody else wanted to jump on the bandwagon.
That's the thing. When we talked about that event, I said on this podcast, I'm like, I wasn't surprised when she went to the BKFC. Everybody was like, "Oh, Paige Van Zandt." Like you have to remember, like if you watch her, she got my respect when she lost. When she lost her fight to Rose Namajunas, the beating she took, and the fact that she wouldn't tap, her arm was getting bent the other way, and she wasn't tapping. I was just like, man, this chick is tough. So when BKFC, said they signed her, and everybody was kind of like, "Oh, she's in BKFC now," I wasn't surprised at all. That chick likes to fight. Yeah, she's hot, pretty, and sexy, and all that stuff with Instagram and all the shiny and the wet booty and all that stuff. but at the end of the day, she likes to fucking throw down. She likes fighting. She loves combat sports, and she's gonna be in the GFL. She's one of the people that are going to fight in the GFL. So I'm not, she said it herself on her own podcast, and her husband's cool as hell too. So like, yeah, Paige Van Zandt's had my respect since
no, but I just think that's something, when the history books are written, you're going to look back and you're going to see her name, and a lot of people are going to forget that she was kind of the pioneer, and she was in wrestling terms, she gave the rub to Britain Hart. You know what I mean? She went out there and fought a no-name person in Britain Hart, lost, but since then Britain Hart became a star and a champion in that organization. So it's kind of, you pass that on a little bit, but no, good respect for Beck Rollins. Good call out there. Real quick here before we wrap up, let's jump to the UFC card this weekend, because I guess it's the first UFC. We have 11 weeks in a row of UFC fights. So we gotta talk about it now, because no one's gonna remember it in about 8 more days. We're not gonna go deep into the card. Top 2 fights: Israel Adesanya versus Nasruddin Imavov. And Michael Venom Page versus Shara Magomedov, the one-eyed man from Russia. I'm going to be pretty simple here. I think that Magomedov finishes MVP.
Oh, wow.
I think he gets wrestled down. I think he submits. And I just, I'm not going to pick MVP and then watch a guy get on his back and hold him down for 15 minutes again. You know what I mean? Like, I just... If you can't beat that version of Ian Gary that he fought that night, then I don't think he's beating this guy. This guy's not in his home, in his home fighting area. Yeah. He's gonna go out there, and I think he's gonna maul MVP. I think that's what's gonna happen.
And you're probably right, but I'm still, I'm a Bellator loyalist. I'm with anybody that came from Bellator. I mean, I'm hoping MVP comes out with some craziness that some skull denting, kneecap snapping, point fighting technique or something that catches Shara by surprise. I want MVP to win, so I'm picking Paige. I don't disagree with you, but I'm picking.
I want him to win, but I don't think he will. I just don't. I'm done. I can't do it anymore.
I'm going with my heart. What are the? Let's just look at the odds really quick. Plus 150. He's plus 150 right now on the UFC's DraftKings odds.
It's not crazy MVP. Odds. I mean, it is a big step up for Magomedov, but I just, I just can't do it anymore. The guy, you got to be able to get up at some point, and he just can't. He's 10 years in, he still can't get up off the ground ever. So, I mean, I don't know what else to say. Israel Adesanya, Imavov. I'm going with Israel Adesanya to win this fight by knockout or decision. I just think he's the better fighter. I think he's going to win. I think they want him to win. I think he has to win.
Yeah, I think he has to win too.
And Imavov. I don't know. I mean, I know he's good. I don't know how good he is. I feel like he loses some of the big ones. I know he's got a couple big nice wins, but I'm going with Izzy here. I feel like it's a somewhat of a showcase fight. Like I said, it's a must win for him. So if he loses this fight, his career's kind of wrapping up, I would say, with all of his kickboxing bouts and everything. Because at this, a loss here means he's got to be.
It's be 3 in a row, yeah.
And it's got to, so you're building your way back. You got names to have. You have to jump at that point. So
yeah, I mean, Imavov is he's on a win streak, so he's riding a couple of wins, and I feel like after the Duplessis fight, I think people kind of the Duplessis fight and even the Robert Whitaker fight with I'm sorry, not Robert Whitaker, Kelvin Gastelum kind of. Adesanya, when Adesanya wants space, like he likes to play with space when you fight him, and I think guys are starting to realize as long as you don't give him that space to play with, and make it ugly in there and frantic and pressure, you throw him off of his game plan. I know it. The only reason I say that is because if you look at the training footage, that especially for this card that they posted on social, he had guys where he was hitting the pads, and in between pad hitting, he had like several people trying to take him down so he could defend takedowns. And this guy's a Russian, so I feel like I wouldn't be surprised if Imavov brings a lot of pressure, crazy. First thing bell goes round one. First thing he's going to do is try and take him down. That's what I see happening. But it is make or break. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. I could see Imavov pulling it off just because it just seems like Adesanya might be. I don't know if he needs like a sports psychologist or whatever you want to call it. I think he might be in his own head a little bit, and I could see Nasruddin pulling it off here. So, I'm picking Imavov to win.
Nice. Well, there it is.
Yeah.
All right, so this is early in the morning Saturday, then BKFC is later in the evening, so it works out great. No overlap, no excuse for not catching those.
Except if you can't find it.
Yeah, except you can't find it. All right, well, fans can follow the show at Combat Hour on Twitter, Coast to Coast Combat Hour on Instagram. You can't follow me anymore because Twitter won't give me my account back after being hacked. But you can follow Ed at Carbazol on Twitter, Carbeerzol on Instagram, and Old Head Carb on Twitch. If anybody knows how to get a hold of anybody to help at X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, please PM Ed or the Coast to Coast Combat Hour Twitter handle. Thanks for the questions. Thanks for listening. Have a good night, everyone.
Peace.